Hello everyone and thank you for watching this video. Lesson number 13 from the Java Fundamentals stream. We are doing good progress and today we will discuss about packages and access modifiers. So if you are watching the event live, I have a live chat there, so you can just drop a question and I will answer it directly. And if you are watching the event afterwards, recorded, or simply you have a question later, you can anytime leave it in the comments section, or you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter and ask me the question and I will create a separate video to answer you as quickly as possible. Today we will continue with packages and then we will discuss about access modifiers, and this will open us the possibility to go into the next chapter in the next lesson, where we will discuss about inheritance. So it's really important, it's a key point in our Java Fundamentals stream here to understand these two topics, and this will open us a door to a very important part of the course. So let's start by discussing about packages. And I would like to observe that I have already created here a package and a class, and for all the lessons until now I have created a package main in which I have dropped my classes for each of the examples. But as an idea, I could have actually created the class directly in the source folder of my project. So for example, if I would like just to go here and create a class, we will call it test, you will see that I have the class outside of any package and it is directly in the source folder, and this is the most upper part of the project in which I can create my classes. Also, if you will try to make a difference between the class that is inside the package here represented as a folder in my project, and the class that is outside of the package practically directly in the source folder, you will see also a difference, a very small difference. Here the test class is the only thing that you see declared in the file, while in the example one that is inside the main package, you will see that I have another declaration here, the instruction package, that is followed by the name of the package in which the class exists. So of course I can just take out the main method for you to see only the difference. You see here I have the declaration of the class, but I have also the declaration of the package that is always the first instruction that you will see in a Java file if that file belongs to a package. This is a really important thing to remember. On your OCP 11 exam questions, you might see situations in which this package instruction is not the first thing in the Java file, and if it is not the first thing in the Java file, there is a problem. It is a compilation problem that will not compile. This is the correct answer to that question. But maybe you are wondering now why the test, why is the example one class actually having in the file the declaration of the package, while the test class doesn't have this instruction. And actually we can just say that when the class is directly in the source folder, like I have done with this class here, we name this is in the default package, and the default package doesn't have a name. And that's why we have no declaration of the package, because this is a package that we only call the default one and it doesn't have a name. While when you just have a package declared, which is always in the file system of folder, that's why it's also represented in the IntelliJ IDE here, as well as if you are using another IDE like Eclipse or NetBeans or some other IDE, you will see that usually a package is represented with a folder icon, and the reason for that is because the package actually at the file system level is a folder. So when you say I declare a class inside a package in Java, I actually say I add a file with the Java extension. As you can see, always a file with Java extension is the source code file that you will use to declare classes. And what's really important to have in mind is that the entire file is actually in reality inside the package is not only the class. It's a little bit wrong to say that the class is inside the package, because the file itself completely is inside the package. At the file system level, that means that the file is inside the folder of the package in the source code structure of the project. And that means that actually, as you will see, you can have multiple classes declared in the same file, and always in Java all of them will be part of the same package. You can't have different classes in the same source file that are part of different packages. So for example, here I can just declare another class in the same file. I can use the class keyword that you already know, and I declare another class. So we have two classes now, and I can have actually as many classes as I want in the same file. But always all of the classes and all of the structures that I declare inside the file, they will be part of the same package, that is the main package here. And that's why the package declaration is always the first thing you see in a Java file. That is because everything that is in that file, then that is declared down below, it will be part of the same package. I can't simply redeclare a package here. I say the package, another package for these classes. This is not possible in Java. So if you see something like this in your OCP 11 questions, you already know that this would be a compilation error. And that's why you also don't have any package here, because it doesn't have any name. But in real examples, in real applications, you will anyway never use the default package, so don't mind too much about it, and you will actually probably don't see it a lot in your exam questions. So this will not affect you too much. I just wanted to show you the difference so that you know, maybe if you would create your class here, why don't you see the package instruction, and what actually is the package instruction? Well, this is the difference. And let's discuss a little bit now about what a package is and why do we use packages, and then we will see some syntaxes that you can use whenever you have classes in different packages. You will see that they don't directly see each other, and that's where we will discuss about the import syntax. And that's a really important syntax, because you will use it in your applications. Of course, now the IDEs nowadays help you with the imports, and that's pretty easy to simply ignore them, but you have to know as a Java developer what an import is and how to use it. And the syntaxes also are important for your OCP 11 exam, so let's go into details with them. Now, a package in your application is a group of classes, and actually, as you have seen, physically speaking, in the file system, it is only a folder that contains the Java files in which the classes and other structures that we will learn are declared. So the package, you can see just logically the package as a collection of classes and structures in Java, and you just usually in a real life application use the package to group together classes that are related to the same kind of responsibilities, so that it's easier to find them in your project, because your project can contain a lot of classes, and if you would just put them all together into the same place, it would become very difficult to find them afterwards and change them. So if we group them somehow, then it will be much easier to organize the code and work with our functionalities. So the first reason for why we use classes in real applications is just the organization of the code. the possibility to make it easier to read and easier to understand, and that's why we are grouping the classes. And if you are watching different videos out of this stream, like for example on the Spring framework stream or in the Spring security playlist that I'm also uploading on this channel, you will see that I use packages a lot to simply group the files and make the project easier to understand. From a syntactically point of view, the package is also a namespace. This is again an important information. A namespace is a place in which you can't have multiple structures with the same name. So for example, I can't have multiple classes with the same name inside the same package. I would be able to declare multiple classes with the same name inside the same project, but they must be in different packages. Inside the same package, this is not allowed. So for example, if I would create a package here that I will call just example, and then I will say I want to create a class A. The class A is now part of the example package, and you also see that I have a class A in the main package. So I can have classes, multiple classes with the same name, as long as they are declared in different packages. So then I can create another package second, and you can see that I can have even here another class that is called A again. So I can have as many classes as I want having the same name, as long as they are in different packages. So that's why we say that a package is a namespace. You would not anyway be able to declare the same class here in the same package. So for example, if I would just try to do something like this in my example here, I would just get an error from the IntelliJ, and if I wouldn't use an IDE and I would just use the normal compiler, then of course I would get directly an error at the compilation of the project. So I can have multiple classes with the same name in the same project, as long as they are not in the same package, and that's why the package is a namespace. Good. That's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind and to understand is that now, because we are discussing about Java 11, I actually have a Java 12, which is the latest version in my project here, but we generally discuss about Java 11 in this stream because that's the OCP 11 at the moment, and Java 11 is the last long-term supported version. And we will also discuss about modules in one of the future lessons, and you will see that modules are different. They are above the packages. I will give you more details into that separate lesson. So the packages were there for a long time ago in Java, but modules are there only since Java 9, so only since about 2 years ago at the moment of recording this video. But being that we will discuss about Java 11, we will also have to discuss about modules, and you will see there what the difference between a module and the packages. For the moment, we only focus on packages that are important for us at this moment. And now I hope that you have actually understood what a package is and how a package is declared, how it is created. You have already seen me, and it's pretty easy in IntelliJ or another IDE to create a new package, and you know that you can create files, Java files inside the package. And now you also know that you are even allowed to declare multiple classes inside the same Java file. Another detail that I have to provide you with regarding declaration of multiple classes within the same file, which might be important for your OCP 11 exam. You will not do that in a real life application anyway, but for your OCP exam it might be important, is that as you have seen here, I didn't use this public here for the A and the B classes, so for the second and the third class declared in this file. I haven't used the public. The public class is only example one, and maybe you have wondered why didn't I use this public as well for the other classes. And you will see actually that if you try to do that, this is a compilation error. You can't have multiple public classes inside the same file. And we will get very soon into what this public is. It is one of our access modifiers that we want to discuss today. But for declaration of the classes, when you use public, you can just remember that this actually means this is the main class of the Java file. So if you have multiple classes, you have one main class. You can't have multiple main classes inside one Java file. So that's why you don't have the possibility to put the public for multiple classes, the declaration of multiple classes inside the Java file. So that's why if I want, I can declare one of the classes as public, and that makes it the main class of the Java file. That also means, as I will tell you when going into the access modifiers and access modes, that this class can be used outside the package, but these classes you won't be able to use them outside the package because they are not public. So that's another difference. But the very important thing, you can't have multiple main classes, multiple public classes in the same Java file. Also very important, I'm not sure how much is it encountered now in the exam questions, but earlier in the early days there were questions about this. When you declare a class as public inside the Java file, the Java file must have the name of that class. So for example, here you see that the class has the name example1, the same as the public class. So if I would try to simply take this out, you will see first that you can have a file in which you have no public classes. This is allowed. In this case, as the specifications say, you can have any name for your file, but when you declare a file as class as public, then mandatory the file must have the name of that class. So now, for example, if I just moved the public from example1 to A, you will see that I have this exception that tells me that class A is public, should be declared in a file named A Java. So the file must have the name of the public class. If that's not what happens, then we have a compilation problem, as you can see here. So I wanted also to show you this, because in the early days, as I've told you, there were also questions on this topic in the OCP exam. I'm not sure exactly how often would you find this question in the OCP 11 exam, but you now know this information. If you will find this question, I hope you know how to answer it. Now, if we I will just take out these classes here to make the example easier, and I want to have multiple classes. Also, I want to show you that a package might have a subpackage. I will call it third. So any package is actually, what you have to remember is that it's individual. So that means that even inside package third, that is part of the second package, I can still have a class named A. So it doesn't matter that third belongs to the second, as you can see here in the file structure. This is considered a different namespace. So again, if you would really want to do that, it is possible to have another A class inside the third package that is part of the second package. And I would also like you to observe the declaration of the packages here. So when you have a package that is part of another package, you will use the dot operator the same one that we always use in Java to specify that something belongs to something else. So we have used this operator a lot, for example, to refer to methods and to fields of a different class or instance, and the same you will use to specify that this is the third package that belongs to the second package, and we can see that in the left in our package structure as well. And because itself is a separate namespace, you can have class A again declared here. So even if in the second package we already have a class A, we can have another one in the sub package that is called third in our case. Good. And let's see what happens. I will also add a class B here in the second package. And now I would like to discuss about using these classes. How can we actually use these classes? And I will declare my public static void main method. And what I want to do here is to simply use the B class for the moment. The first of all, I would like to use the class B. That is the only B that we have in our code structure here. And then I would try to use the class A. That's a little bit different because we have multiple classes A. We want to see and understand what happens in all these situations. So first things first, if we try to use B class, and you know now that you could use, for example, the default constructor to create an instance. And when I say use a class, I don't necessarily refer to instantiation, to creating objects. When I say use a class, I can refer to calling a static method where we don't need any instance to do that, or the static field the same, you don't need an instance to do that. Anything that refers to the name of the class, that's what I mean when I say use a class. So for example, the instantiation itself would be using a class, even declaring that B variable here. So even this would mean using the class. And you can see here that at this moment my IDE tells me that this is a compilation error, and maybe you didn't see something like this until now. For example, when we were using that cat class in the previous lessons, I could have simply just used that class inside my main method, and I didn't need to do anything special for that. And the reason was that both classes that were referring one to each other were part of the same package. So when the classes are part of the same package, which is the same namespace, they can use each other without you doing anything special. So for example, if I would in the main package here declare a class that is C, I could say C and I can use that, and I have no problem, no compilation error. And the reason is example 1 can see the C class because it is part of the same package. So as long as both classes are part of the same package, they can use each other without needing to do something special. But this is not the case with B or with A, because B and A are in a different package than example 1. So example 1 is part of the main package while B is part of the second package. So because of this, I can't simply refer to B. So the first thing that I can do if I really want to use B, the first thing would be just to use again the dot operator to refer to B as being the class B of the second package. So I can write something like this, second B. So that will work. And again, if I would try just to instantiate, to create an instance of this class, I can just, instead of writing B, wherever I refer to B, just give it the full name, that is together with the package in which it belongs. So that would mean actually that the same thing I would be able to do with a class in the third package if I would say something like second.third.a, and again continue with this syntax, which is legal from Java point of view. You can use it. As you can see, I have no compilation error at the moment and it works. I have created a B and an A instance, but usually you will find it very difficult to read and very difficult even to write, even with an IDE. So you can imagine that even in real life situations, you can have examples in which you have a package of maybe 30, 40, 50 characters long. So imagine what would that mean if every time you would have to use a class of that package, you would have to prefix the class name with another 40, 50 characters. It would be so uncomfortable. So even if it is a good syntax and you have to know it for your OCP 11 exam, you won't really use it in your applications. It's hard to believe that anybody would like to use this syntax. So how can we solve that in this situation? How can we use a class that is part of another package without explicitly having to specify the package name before the class name? Well, this is where the import instruction appears to be useful. So instead of simply prefixing the class name with the package name, I will just go here before any declaration of any class in my Java file, and always after the package declaration, and I will use the import instruction to specify where is this B coming from. So for example, in my case is the package named second, and then I write the name of the class, and that actually means that I have imported the class. So the only thing that this instruction actually does is to specify who is B. In my case, I can now use the B class without having to tell the compiler where is B coming from, because I have specified that once at the beginning of the project, and now B is known to be the one declared in package named second. And of course, in intelligent IDEs, you will just use a shortcut like Alt Enter in IntelliJ, and that will automatically import the class. Or for example, it will be Control Shift O in Eclipse. So usually that's why I say in practice you won't look too much at the imports, and you will not take them into consideration, because they will be basically most of the times just automatically created by your IDE, and you won't be really interested in them. But for your OCP 11 exam, it's really important to understand the import rules and to know the syntaxes, because they will appear in your questions. So that's the first thing. The second thing that is important is to know that we have also a star syntax, and when you use this syntax, it means that you will actually import all the classes inside the package that is specified here. So inside the second, you will just import everything out of it. So in this case, the A and the B class here. Mind that everything that is inside a package that might be part of second is not imported. So this A class here, this one will not be imported by the star. So when you use this star syntax in Java, this only means all the classes directly inside the package to which you refer. So if you would like to import this A here, you can actually write something like second, third, and then use a star or use the class that you want to import. And of course, as you can see, I have imported this, and even if with a star, the big class is not compiling anymore because I didn't import it. So in order to import it, I either have to import all the classes from the second package, or I have to explicitly say that I import the B class from the second package. So this is how the import works. And again, you will see situations in your exam questions in which the import is used above the package instruction, and that's not correct. Always this is the first instruction that you will see in a Java file, and only then you will have the imports if needed, and then you will have all the classes. And same as with the package, if you have multiple classes inside the same file, you can't have separate imports for them. You cannot have this. You have to declare all your imports above all the declarations of the classes, and they will be the declarations used by all the classes declared. If you have multiple, you can't have separate imports for the first class and some other imports for the second class. This is not possible in Java. So again, important to know for your OCP 11 exam. Now, what happens if we want to use a class that have multiple declarations? And in this case, you can simply specify which of the classes you want to use by the package itself. So one of the things this is a really nice situation, because the A class is not also inside the main package. It would be much more complicated if we also have an A class here. I will show you immediately. But in this case, it's actually pretty simple, because you again can just use the same syntaxes to specify which class you want, and you can say, yes, I want A class from the second package, or I want the A class from second, third package, or I want the A class from the example package. So it's much more easier like this. Now, it would be a bigger problem actually if you would also have an A class inside the main package, so inside the package that contains also the example1 class. So let's see what happens here. You already use the A class and you don't need any import for the A class in this case. So if you now want to use also some of the other A classes, now it really becomes a problem, because you can't import two classes having the same name. If you would try to do that, it won't work, just because even if you declare it, it wouldn't know to which of the imports do you refer when writing A. So if you have something like this, you would just have to specify which is the class that you really need to use. So for example, I can use both A classes in the main package and in the second package by making sure that always when I want to use the one from the second package, I have to specify the package name before. And I can't simply just make two imports with a class with the same name. I really have to specify explicitly to prefix the package to the name of the class whenever I get into this situation. And there was a situation, and that still is sometimes in Java, in real applications, where you have cases in which you have to use classes with the same name. Like for example, maybe the most known situation is the date class, which is one of the date classes is declared in Java util package, and then there is another date class in Java SQL package. And sometimes it happened that you have to use both the util and the SQL inside the same class, and being that they have the same name, then you had to to prefix the class with the package name. So it even might happen in a real case scenario, but you only have to know this syntactic. If you have understood the syntaxes for the simple imports, there is another kind of import that you have to understand as well, and that's named the static import. And the name, as the name suggests, the static import is something that you will use for importing directly static elements declared in the class. That would be static fields, static methods, and you will see in the future even static nested classes. So for example here, if in the B class I would just declare a static and static, and I will also have to add the public here, and that's exactly the next chapter that I will start immediately after discussing the static imports. So I will have to add a public, you will see immediately why. And I will declare public static, for example, and int x, and then the same thing I will actually do for a method m. So in static, sorry, here. So in my B class now I have two static fields, and the reason for why I have declared these two static members, the static variable x and the static method m, is that I want to show you how can we actually import only directly this member if we need it. So you will see cases in which instead of using like bx or bm, that would actually mean you have to import the B class the way we have just discussed by using an import here. And of course now this is working, you can use the class as long as you have imported it. There is also the possibility to simply specify that you directly import the x, and that's done by using the static modifier here, and of course then you have to declare who is imported, so in my case x, and of course then the same thing I have to do for m. And as you can see, if I do something like this, if I import static, then I can directly use that member name without specifying the class to which it belongs. I would just say x takes the value 10, and x then is known to be the member of B, the static member of B, because it was imported static above. Nothing difficult, only two tricks you have to remember regarding static imports for your OCP 11 exam. You can never write static before the import. Static import is not allowed, so it's always import and then the static modifier. You can't have the declaration of the keywords the other way around, so only works like this. I tell you this because you will find it in questions of the OCP 11 exam. And another thing that you have to remember, never, when you statically import a method, you never have here the parentheses for the parameters. So that actually means that if you have overloaded methods, and we have discussed the previous lesson about overloading methods, and that you know that means actually in the same class you have multiple methods with the same identifier but multiple parameters, you will not be able to simply static import only one of them. If you have multiple overloaded methods, you can only import all of them together, because you don't have a syntax in which you can specify the parameters. You can just specify the name of the method. So now I have actually imported all the M methods inside the B class. That's a fact. And these two tricks, let's call them like this, these two tricks will appear possibly in your OCP 11 exam regarding the static import. This is for sure something you need to remember. Okay, and now we just go to why did I have to use this public here and this public here? So let's just drive into the next chapter, that is the access modifiers, and I assume now that you have understood a lot of things about packages, and all the details that I have provided you with, most of them are needed only for your OCP 11 exam, but that's one of the topics, one of the objectives of this stream, so that's why I want to really provide you with all the tricks that you need to know before going to that exam. And now let's see what this public is and what actually why did I actually add it here. First of all, going back to the beginning of this lesson, I have told you about this public. It's a little bit special. It is the same public word that I have used it here, but is a little bit special when you use it before a top level class. So that's a class declared directly in the Java file. For this public, I want you to remember that first of all is the one that declares the main class of the Java file, and you have seen that you can have multiple classes inside the same Java file, but only one, maximum one. You can have no public class, but you can't have more than one public class. Is the main class of the file, and that means also that the file name must be the name of that class. You can't have anything else here. You can have public or nothing, but you can't have something else. While when discussing about, for example, a normal member declared inside the class, then you can either have nothing, as you have seen me working until now, because I didn't want to get into these details until this lesson, that is where we want to discuss the access modifiers. And when I have no modifier before the declaration of that specific member, I will say that this is the default access mode. So the default mode, as we name it, also found as the package mode, also named the package mode. So if you don't specify anything at the declaration of a specific member of the class, then it is called that is in the package mode or the default mode, default access mode. If you add a public before the declaration, that makes it to be the public mode. And then two other modes in which you can set your member would be private and protected. So in Java you actually have 4 different access modes and 3 access modifiers. If you don't use any access modifier, then your member will be in the default mode, also named the package mode. All the 4 modes are different one to each other, because there are languages in which if you don't specify anything, automatically the member becomes private, for example. But this is not the case for Java. In Java you have specific functionality, the way it works when you don't use private or public or protected as when you use them. So make sure that you understand all these 4 modes precisely. And of course I have shown you this using the declaration of the variable, but actually these modes are for any kind of class member, can be static or non-static, can be a nested type, as we will discuss in one of the future lessons. So for example, I could have used here the same of the access modifiers. So it's again, I have just shown you with the field, but it's for any kind of the members of the class. Never inside the local blocks, so never inside, for example, a method block or anonymous block that we have discussed in the previous lessons. You can't write something like private int x here, doesn't make sense. Yeah, private, public and protected are access modifiers, and they can only be used for the members of the class, and they only have meaning there. There is no meaning of having a local variable private. You will find this again in your exam questions, and when you will see a private, public, or protected used inside a local block, then that's a compilation error. It has no sense to use it there. Okay, now what is actually each of them, and what is the access that they offer? Well, let's start with what happens when you don't use any of this. So when you are in the so-called default or package mode, it is called the package mode because X now can be accessed inside the package. So for example, here, if I'm in the package called second, and here I have two classes, A and B. Only A and B, which are the classes inside second package, will be able to access this member X. That's why we are calling it a package mode. When you don't specify any access modifier, the member will be accessible inside in the classes that are inside the same package in which the member is declared. So A here will be able to access X, but this A here, example 1, C, or any other classes that are outside the package in which B is declared won't be able to access this X. And when I say access it, I mean just simply using the dot operator to dereferentiate it. For example, here now X is no longer accessible. This is the same thing that happens here. Previously, when I have used the public, that worked fine. It can be used, it is accessible, it's not read, it compiles. But if I just go and take out the public, this doesn't work anymore, because X, as it also says in my IntelliJ here, being not public, cannot be accessed outside the package. So this is the package mode. We also have the possibility to make it private, which means that X will only be accessible inside the class that declared it. So that means inside these curly braces of the class B, here X will now be accessible, but no one can access it from outside, not even from classes that are part of the same package. So if in the package mode, classes that are inside the same package with B would have been able to access the default mode access, if you make it private, private means that only the class itself that declares the main member can access that member. So nobody else, only B class would be able to access X now, because X is private. If you make it public, public would mean you can access it from everywhere. And I have a little bit of a star here that I will explain it in one of the next lessons, in which we will discuss about modules, because you will actually see that public is not necessarily accessible everywhere, starting with Java 9, because we have also this structure called module that I will again define when we have a specific lesson about it. You will see that not necessarily anything that's public can be seen in other modules. But now, thinking only about what we know, what we have discussed, that are the packages, you could say that public members can be accessed everywhere, doesn't matter which package of your project. So you can just until discussing about modules, think about public as visible everywhere. This is actually as it was until Java 8. It just started to be a little bit different with Java 9, and we will discuss that difference. And the last access mode and modifier is the protected mode, in which, and again, this I won't be able, and you won't understand completely this access mode until next lesson, in which we discuss about inheritance. And that's because when something is protected in Java, that actually means that you can access it inside the package, same as in the package mode, but sometimes also outside the package. And that sometimes we can say is if a class inherits the class that declared the member, then that class, even if it is outside the package, will also have access to the protected members. So in case of the protected members, you could say that protected members can be accessed inside the package, but also by all the classes that inherit the class that declared the member. So all the classes that inherit B in our case. And the thing that you probably don't know, considering this is the Java fundamental stream, I just start from the assumption that you don't know anything that we have discussed, only what we have discussed until now. So inheritance is the next chapter of and the next lesson of this stream. So when we will discuss about inheritance, you will completely understand what protected is as well. So don't mind now if you don't understand what protected is. It's fine that you don't understand. You will in the next lesson. Again, when I will take also these modes and try to make some examples out of them, so we don't have a lot of time, a lot more time to discuss now about the access modifiers, but I won't let you without examples for any of them. And anyway, about public and private we will discuss a lot more when also discussing about encapsulation. That is really important as well. For the moment, I would only like to theoretically understand what is the access provided by each of these modes. So when you don't use a modifier and you are in the package mode, you can access a member inside the package. Public means accessible everywhere, private only in the class that declared that member, and protected inside the package, but also by the classes that inherit the class that declared that member. Before ending with the today's lesson, I would also like to put these modes in an order of accessibility. And I won't tell you a lot about why are we doing this now, but I will just tell you it's really important to understand this order and to remember it, because in one of our future lessons where we will discuss about overriding, and again I said overriding very hard pronounced because I don't want to mess it up with overloading that we have discussed in the previous lessons. For overriding, the access mode of a member is important, and it is important based on exactly the order of accessibility. So it's really important to understand the order of accessibility of the access modes from the most public to the most private. And if we take it from the most public to the most private, anybody probably can just understand without any explanation that public is the most public and private is the most private. So this is nothing rocket science about public and private. They are self-explanatory. Public is the most public, private is the most private. So always the problem comes when discussing about who is more public or more private between the package mode and the protected. And as you will see, protected is actually considered to be more public than the default mode, than the package mode. And the reason for that is that in the default mode you can only access members inside the same package, while in the protected mode you can access members inside the same package as well, but sometimes also outside the package for those classes that inherit the class that declared the member. So that's why protected is a little bit more public than the default mode, and the order is from public to private. It's public, protected, default mode, and then private. And again, this order will be so important when we will discuss about overriding, so you can already memorize it, and I will anyway provide it again at that time. I will just try to stress you a lot with all the things that really matter. Those things that really matter, you will hear me repeating them again and again during the stream. So that's how I will probably manage to make you remember them before going into that OCP exam. And these are not only for the OCP exam, by the way, these are really important also for a real case scenario. So they are part of the overriding, inheritance, polymorphism part of the course. And this part is something that if you don't understand very well, is not only that you shouldn't go to the OCP exam, is that you can't actually use Java in programming. So from now starting, the next some lessons are so important that you shouldn't miss them, and I will try to make them as easy and to understand as possible. And if you have questions, if something is unclear, always don't forget that you can ask questions. If you are live, you can ask them in the live chat. I always have an eye on the live chat. And if you have questions afterwards, you can ask me questions in the comments section, or find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I will create a separate video. It's really important that you understand these things. Okay, if everything is clear, thank you again very much for watching the stream, and I hope it will again be very useful for you, and hope to see you for the next lessons. So all good and all best.